Welcome to the Danny Carlson Podcast, your resource for growing the business and mindset for a life of unrestricted freedom. Now here's your host, online marketing acrobat, Danny Carlson.
What is up, guys? Danny Carlson here, and this episode of the Danny Carlson Podcast, we are doing this here in Bali, and I have a really fascinating guy next to me right here. He has a company that is unique, to say the least. It is one of the most unique physical product companies I've ever come across, and he's got some very powerful opinions on just like money being a story and every range of things. We've had some really heated conversations and really interesting debates already just over dinner, and this is going to be a really fascinating conversation to dive into. I think it's going to go a lot of different places.
Yeah.
But maybe a good place to start is, what is this crazy device that you're holding in your hand over here?
Sure, yeah. So I run a company called Pavlok. So we make wearable devices and habit change technology. So we help people, we create products and services that help people form good habits, break bad habits, and become the person that they know they could be. And so my background is I grew up in California in the US, and I was always like told by my teachers that I was really bad at focus. They always told me that like I had ADD. And I went to college, and I was diagnosed with attention deficit disorder. And so I started a blog where I would do these experiments on myself. My readers would vote where I would fly to and what I would do in these experiments. And in like 2012, I did an experimentation series on trying to be more productive. And for me at that time, it was about writing more, because it was so hard for me. I literally had nothing to do. My entire job was to write 2 articles a week. And I literally sat in front of my computer 8 hours a day. And I would write less than 1 a week. I would spend 6 hours a day on Facebook or chatting or browsing Hacker News or Reddit or whatever. And I would write less than an article a week, and it was ridiculous. So I said, what if I could get myself to write more articles? Let me try to do a productivity experiment to get myself to write more. So I hired this girl whose job was to follow me around, and every time I wasted time or stopped writing, she would slap me in the face. And I paid her $8 an hour. I put an ad up on Craigslist. I hired somebody the same day, and within 24 hours, I'd written like 2 weeks of content. By the end of the week 1, by the end of day 4, I'd written 4 months of content.
And so, like, she was actually following through. She legitimately was slapping you in the face.
Yeah, there's a video of her slapping me in the face. If you search "slapped Craigslist," you'll see me at the top. But like more importantly, like she only slapped me once in the 2 weeks, maybe twice. But realistically, it was having a human being sitting down next to me who I communicated in advance what my tasks were. And suddenly this boring, project of sitting and writing in front of a computer became a social project. I'd be like, hey, how does this paragraph sound? What, could you look up some images while I do this? So it was the act of having another human being holding me accountable that really made the difference. The slap certainly added a little bit of fun to the game, and it added, a negative reinforcer, a disincentive. But the real key was having somebody who was holding me accountable. And so I wrote this article and I posted it online. I wrote why I hired a girl on Craigslist to slap me in the face and how it quadrupled my productivity. And I go to sleep, and it turns out that the word slapper in UK, in Britain, means prostitute. So the Daily Mail took this, someone saw it in the Daily Mail and reposted it and said like, man hires slapper on to get him off Facebook. And it took off. By the time I woke up to 75 missed calls. I was talking to NPR within like an hour of waking up. Anderson Cooper was calling me. His show wanted to book me. And for the next 3 days, I was famous. I was the guy who hired someone to slap me in the face. And then 3 days later, the whole hype cycle died. And my blog had grown massively in these 3 days. And so I was talking to a few friends, and I said, how do we bring this to the next level? How do we re-viral this content? What if we make like a dog shock collar that zaps me every time I go on Facebook? And my friend said, let's go to Radio Shack. So he was smarter than I was with hardware, but we ripped apart this dog shock collar. We hooked it up to an Arduino, which is a thing you can use on your computer. And we programmed it so every time I went on Facebook, it would connect zap me, basically, with this dog collar.
Yeah, you wrote a little piece of software that is physically going to make the dog collar zap you. When
it was like you buy this dog collar off the shelf. It has a remote control and a piece, right? So we ripped apart the remote control. There's a button, and you put those 2 little lines in the Arduino, and you say, if Facebook connect the lines,
yes,
right? Turn on button. And so he knew what he was doing. It was a very simple prototype. And we made a video about it, and I was like, awesome, I'm going to post this online, I'm going to get famous again, I'm going to be viral again. And then I thought to myself, this is actually really interesting because there's a million wearables out there that are tracking what I do. But this one's actually changing what I do. Maybe there's something here that's more fundamental than a funny blog post. Maybe there's something here like a product that can really help other people get control of their behaviors and take control of their lives. And so that was the idea for my company, Pavlok, which is our first product was Pavlok 1, and at its core was really basically exactly the dog shock collar made for humans. It's a smart dog shock collar for humans is how I describe it. Essentially, it's a wearable that vibrates, beeps, and zaps when it's told to. And so it can vibrate little signals, it can beep and make different sounds, and then it can release electrical stimuluses that can start at low levels that feel like a tap and high levels that feel like a punch.
Yeah, like it feels pretty solid. Like you zapped me with it the other day, and it's not to the point where like you're gonna be sitting there like going like, oh, like for that long, but it's enough that like it'll get you scared. You know,
yeah,
if you know that it's coming, like you'll have a bit of fear.
Yeah, it definitely gets your attention. I think more than anything, it knocks you out of automatic mode and brings you into the present. And when you connect that to Bluetooth, which is what we did, we made it a smart device, so it connects to Bluetooth, and then we wrote an app for it. So now you think of the outputs as vibration, beep, and zap, and the inputs are whatever data source you want. So if I go on Facebook, it can start to vibrate or beep. If I enter McDonald's, it can beep loudly until I leave. If I start to bite my nails because of the internal measuring accelerometers, it can vibrate, beep, zap, unless I stop biting my nails. So that became kind of the core of the product, and that's what we started off with. Since then, we've let the market kind of determine what our needs were. Early on, before we launched, we were on Shark Tank. That was when we were targeting around being a bad habit cessation device.
Yeah, the most watched episode of Shark Tank.
Yeah, most watched clip. And then we really found a really powerful niche in waking up. Turns out that like I've never had trouble waking up in the morning. I always had trouble going to bed. But a lot of people have trouble waking up, people with many snooze alarms. And our product is really, really effective at making you just get up with adrenaline. So it essentially tracks your sleep cycles, vibrates you gently in your lightest stage of sleep. You have 1 minute to get out of bed and do jumping jacks before the zap hits you. And so everybody wakes up to the zap. People who are hard of hearing, people who hit the snooze button 20 times, they always wake up. So that became really the core of the last, we've been around for 6 years, so I'd say years 2 through 5, we're really focused around waking up. We re-released the product with another name called Shock Clock, the watch that wakes you up. And then since then, in the last 6 months, we've really been finding that there's a huge power in positive reinforcement for rewarding people for doing good habits. And you and I were having a conversation about this before.
So rewarding and punishing both ends of the spectrum. I
find that breaking bad habits requires a zap. It requires a punishment in the moment. Like you can't give someone a cookie for not biting their nails. It doesn't make sense because they don't even remember if they did it or not. You need to add a punishment, the word punishment has a lot of load with it, but like a reinforcer or a reminder or a correction, however you want to call it. Every time that someone's biting their nails, every time in the moment, zap, 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 zap. Okay, fine, I won't. You know. But if you say, hey, if you don't bite your nails, then I'll get you, then you can buy yourself a cookie later on today. Like that doesn't make sense because they don't even know when they're doing it.
Yeah, there's no instant feedback. There's not someone there holding a box of cookies waiting for you to not bite your nails because it's not there. You're not.
But a lot of like couples will have like they stop biting their nails when they're around their couple because their significant other will be like, come on, stop it, stop doing that. They're the negative reinforcer in the moment. So anyway, breaking bad habits requires a in the moment stimulus. But for forming good habits, it's a fundamentally different process. So it's like negative reinforcement is really powerful. The fear of loss is really powerful at getting a habit started. But positive reinforcement is really, really powerful to make a habit stick. And to me, the world's most powerful positive reinforcer is money. Like money becomes the reinforcer, the reward system that people don't even think is a reward system because it's so deeply embedded into our world that we just think it doesn't even count. But it really counts for everything in society. And so...
and like, just to drive that point home, for those of you listening, think about that job that you had that was just your least favorite job in the world. You hated every single second of it, but you still, every single day, showed up on time for that job, or 5 minutes early before your shift started, or whatever, like it's clockwork.
Yeah.
Right?
Like, think about that. Like, I was describing to you, like, imagine going to a cafe, right? Like, there are people who go and work at a cafe for 10 years straight. Every day they show up at a cafe and they stand there making coffee for somebody else who they don't really like. You know, they don't even know them. Like, and that is a habit. Without even thinking, they wake up in the morning, they show up, they do the work, and then they leave. Why? Because they get this positive reinforcer of money. And that habit is so core, the idea of work. And money becomes this positive reinforcer that makes it so you are willing to do tasks that are completely irrelevant, that are completely ridiculous from if an alien were to watch us doing this. Completely ridiculous. But because there's a prize at the end of the tunnel, you're willing to do basically anything that someone tells you to do. And so I've been seeing how powerful it is to use money as a way to reward good habits rather than how we do it now, which is basically paying you to do what somebody else wants you to do. Like one of the big fundamental things that we were talking about earlier is that I believe that the meaning of money has really rapidly changed in just our generation, in the sense of money. Like, if you think about humans, we've been around for like 6 million years, the Homo genus, and the Homo sapiens have been around for like a couple 100,000 years. And only in the last, 4,000 years has money been around? Money was invented only 4,000 years ago.
Before it was just bartering, right? Like, I'll trade you my chickens for your goats or whatever.
Exactly. But even before that, I mean, before agriculture, it was just small groups of 150 people who all lived in one or less, all living in small little tribes, all nomadic, all living apart from each other, rarely overlapping, and nomadic, right? For almost, if you count the Homo genus, 6 million years. It's a lot of years. And 50,000 years ago, suddenly we invented language. And then 10,000 years ago, someone's like, oh shit, what if I plant some seeds? And 10,000 years ago, agriculture started creating this new system where people were able to own stuff for the first time ever. And language plus agriculture really led to a revolution where humans could live in groups of larger than 150 people, right? But in order to make these groups start to work together, they had to start having there's a book called Sapiens, and Yuval Harari writes about these things. He calls them shared delusions or something like that. I think it's shared delusions or some kind of word like that. And basically, human beings kind of believe in these shared stories, these shared delusions that of government being real or of religion being real. And if everybody agrees upon these delusions, then they become real.
Yeah, essentially, like, it is technically a story, but you take it as given, right? Like, everyone's like, money has value because they were born into a world where money has value, right?
Yeah, everyone's like, oh, if I speed in America on the street, then I'll get a ticket, and that's, the bad man is going to give me a ticket. But here, I don't fear the law here, so I never look at the odometer. But every time I go back to the U.S., I'm very scared about getting a ticket. I feel fear from the boogeyman, who's this police officer, because as a kid growing up in America, I was taught that the policeman will get you if you do anything even a little wrong in America. You know what I mean? And anyway, the biggest shared delusion and I think the most powerful one of all time is money. It's one that allowed us to trust each other without actually knowing each other. And and money makes a lot of sense as it is. Money right now, I think the best way I describe it is that it's something that you get because somebody else wants you to do something. So you receive money because somebody else wants you to do something. Mm-hmm. I think in most cases, you're giving money to get some product or service from somebody else, or you're giving money because you want to, in almost every case, that's what it is. And that makes a lot of sense in a scarcity economy where you have goats and I have wheat and we need to trade. That makes a lot of sense when you have stuff that I don't have and I have stuff that you don't have. But it doesn't quite make sense in our modern society of abundance where the poorer you are, the fatter you are. It doesn't really make sense in a society where the richest man in the world has exactly the same phone as you and me, as probably millions of Americans, definitely millions of Americans, right? The gap between rich and poor, although if you describe it on a monetary basis, yes, it looks very large. If you describe it upon an actual living basis, the king and the pauper both have air conditioning and both have Netflix. You know what I mean? And so we live in a very flattening world.
Yeah, like as Peter D. Mandis says, the haves and the super haves is where we're moving more and more towards, right? Yeah. The gap is like basic human needs are being met, and then it's just like incredibly exceeded, right? But at least the basic human needs for even the poorest people are being met more and more across the world.
Like, it's crazy. It's crazy how fast it's being met. It's crazy. Like something like every day last year, 135,000 people got electricity. Like every day last year, 150,000 people each day went from making less than $10 a day to making more than $10 a day. Yes, there's still people living in bad poverty. Yes, there's people that we need to take care of, but the trend is extremely positive. And for some reason, it's very easy for us to focus on negatives. It's kind of mind-boggling to me how much people focus on negatives when they don't realize how good things are and how good the trend line is. But like, and I guarantee you there's people who are listening or watching this who are instantly pissed off because I said that, like, you know, Jeff Bezos is living in a world that's more equal than it would be 50 years ago, when if all you judge value on is based on the number of coins, a number of fake points in your fake account.
Well, that ties into the story of money, though.
Yeah, exactly.
A lot of people have a very, very negative story about money in their own brains.
Yeah,
just in the way they're brought up, right?
The crazy part is that it's not real. It's not actually there, right? And so that's the funniest thing about it. It's that it's just like playing a video game. It's when you're playing a video game, you know, at the beginning of the game, your experience points are worth very, very much. So you really conserve them and you decide which potion you want to buy. You decide, should I get the armor or should I get the gauntlet? You know, like which one's the most important thing. But then by the end of the game, you have so many points that you're just like, let me get 30 potions just in case. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like we're at the end of the game of money as it was, such that there's so much of it now. But it's distributed in a very weird way that it's like an abundant resource that's distributed based on context that doesn't make sense anymore. It's a scarcity-based context. My point here is that the story of money as it was is you get paid for doing what someone else wants you to do. And that makes a lot of sense in a scarcity economy. But in an abundance economy, that story doesn't work anymore because the problems that we have are not about what other people want us to do. The problems are about what we want ourselves to do. Like 70% of deaths are caused by lifestyle diseases. They're caused by things that would be fixed by a human being taking action that he knows he wants to take. Quitting smoking, going to the gym, drinking more water, meditating, exercising, stuff like that. Obvious stuff that everyone knows, right? But for some reason, they're able to go sit in front of a desk and work on Excel for 8 hours a day for 5 days a week. No problem. But the act of going to the gym, the thing that will actually make them live longer, feel better, be happier, be healthier, and have more sex, that, for some reason, is an astronomically difficult problem to solve, which is crazy.
Yeah, it's not for lack of knowledge.
It's
like
definitely
everyone knows what they have to do. It's like, yes, they need to go to the gym, I need to lift some weights, I need to, you know, do, like, everyone has some base level knowledge of what they need to do at the gym.
Yeah, just showing, they're not doing it. Taking 10,000 steps, you know, it's not a perfect metric, but it's a damn good one. Like, it's better than nothing. And I think that if you just imagine you're an alien coming down to watch these people, like, forget about this, like, they don't know what money is, right? And they're seeing these people who are unhappy, who are getting fat and ugly, and they're seeing them sit in front of a computer and moving numbers and digits around on an Excel spreadsheet, and they can see how their cortisol levels are rising because the person that they hate their boss, and they see them just getting in a car and driving and never once taking a walk, never once using their body, never once doing the things that are obvious, and it's not even like it's a long process to feel better after exercise. It's almost instantaneous. As soon as you actually start working out, in minutes you feel better. The fact that there's a huge disconnect is, I think, directly related to the context of what money was and not what it should be. And I think that if you look at it that way, it's like, if you think about money, money can be delivered in a variety of ways, right? But at the end of the day, money is a quantifiable resource, so it's positives and negatives. It's very simple. And so you get discounts on stuff, or you take percentages of stuff, or you take extra stuff, or then you start multiplying those together and it becomes stocks or bets, like derivatives. And all these things are just math formulas to take fake points and turn them into different kinds of points. But they're still the same valuation of points. And what I'm trying to get at is that you can take, it makes a lot of sense when there's not enough calories in the world, that you would do some work for someone else so that you would get these points that you can spend on calories that you need, right? But in today's world, the food, the more calories that's in it, the cheaper it is. So you get discounts on getting more calories, right? You're getting a discount on it. So that's why it's more expensive to eat healthier than it is for you to eat fast food, right? In the same way, you have to pay money to go work out at a gym and pay even more money to get a personal trainer, a significant amount of money to get a personal trainer. But if instead, in a scarcity economy, that makes a lot of sense. But in an abundance economy, that doesn't quite make any sense anymore. Instead, a better system, and forgetting about the hows, but thinking about the what would be great, a better system would be one where you get discounts on food if the food is healthier for you. And a better system would be one in which you get paid money to go to the gym. Or you get at least a discount, but ideally actually paid money to go to the gym, and even more money if you work out with a trainer. Right? In a world where you could actually get paid to go to the gym, in a world where you could actually get paid to meditate, to drink water, to sleep on time, to turn off your computer, to stop checking your phone, in a world where you actually received money for those actions, you can see how the change would actually be quite rapid for not everybody, but a large percentage of people, where they would be able to make massive fundamental shifts to their behavior that actually aren't that massive, but they are fundamental. Very small shifts, like if you got paid $100 to go to the gym before work, you'd find a lot of people going to the fucking gym, right?
Oh yeah,
a lot of people. And if you got so what I believe my mission is to do is how do I create a system to redistribute money in a way that actually makes sense, in a way where people are paid good money, a reasonable amount of money for doing good habits. And I believe that the time is ripe for it to happen, and I don't even believe it's difficult. I think it's actually a inevitability.
Yeah, well, and I think you're onto something really interesting here, because those are the biggest traps facing the modern developed world right now, right? Is people are spending a lot of their time in a job that they don't like to make enough money, and then to kind of mentally escape through different escapism things. Mm-hmm. They're spending that money on, Netflix, and spending more time on Instagram and junk food and, alcohol and all these things that, at least in the United States, are incredibly cheap.
Yeah.
Right? Like you said, the health food is the most expensive thing that you can be doing, even though that is what you should be doing. So I guess another interesting piece of this is, do you think that if people just did better things for their lives, that they would feel less need to engage in escapism in the first place? Like if they're actually...
well, of course, right? If you have the habit of going to the gym, it's as hard to break a good habit as it is to break a bad habit. So there are people who are addicted to going to the gym. You ever have these friends who are like, oh my God, I missed the gym today. Like I missed yoga today and I feel so bad. And you're like, fuck off, you motherfucker. Like I haven't gone to yoga in 6 years. You're complaining about missing one day. That guy, it's as hard for him to stop doing yoga or her to stop doing yoga as it is for you to start doing yoga. Right? Because a habit is a habit is a habit. It's not about, it's not good or bad in the brain. A habit is when there's no activity in the prefrontal cortex and all activity is signaled in the basal ganglia and the reptile part of your brain. When you try to do a new habit, it takes energy. It's expended right here. The more you do an action on repetition, the more the activity migrates back to what the reptile, to the basal ganglia. And so whether it's exercising or whether it's watching Netflix, the same brain activity will happen when something is a habit. And yeah, it's a lot easier to form some specific habits because some are naturally pleasurable in the moment, like sugar.
Your body's just kind of wired.
Yeah, your body's wired to
that.
like it, right? Yeah. And I mean, your body is wired to like exercise, but it's not wired to move unless it's already moving. It's a momentum device, right? So if your body, like if you're walking every day, like you'll notice that you naturally start walking. But like if you, it's very easy for your body to get comfortable and sit. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, but you have to create that mental pathway, right? Because the benefits of exercise, they come either partway through or at the end of the exercise, right? The beginning part of the exercise, you're like getting your body warmed up and you feel a lot of physical pain.
Yeah, but I mean, forget about exercise. I'm talking about like motion. So like walking to work. I used to walk to work, and the first day I walked to work, it was a 30-minute walk, and it was great. I walked there for 30 minutes, right? And then I had to move to a new place after 2 weeks, and it was 35 minutes. So I was like, all right, I'll take the walk because I'm used to it. Suddenly, I moved to another place that was 1.5 hours away by walking. But because I was already used to the walking, it was easier for me to start walking than it was for me to take the train or to take an Uber. Mm-hmm. And the train was next to my house. It was $1.50, and it would get me there in 15 minutes. But because I was already in the habit of walking, I was living in Boston, became so deeply ingrained that even when it was snowing, like snowing hardcore Boston snow, I would walk every day because the habit was so deeply ingrained that it wasn't about getting from point A to point B, and the method of transportation was walking, and it felt uncomfortable. to go into the train station because I never went that way. I was right, I didn't go left. And so, those are tactics to engender, different behaviors, whatever. I mean, we can talk about, watch my video on how to form habits in the brain. That's fine. But like the point being that like the system right now is really, really optimized for like. I walked every day that I was here in Bali, and then someone gave me a motorcycle, gave me a bike, and it was like $23 a month or something like this. I think I pay $7 million. It's something crazy. I pay $30 a month or something. And it's so cheap, and like $2 of petrol covers me for a month, right? And so it only took one day before I stopped walking 10,000 steps and started walking 1,000 steps, right? Because in one day I went from walking everywhere to getting on a bike because the system was so optimized for bikes. And so, but if instead, for example, I was paid real money to take a walk every day, then I'd be far more likely to keep walking.
Yeah, I think you're definitely onto something with that. Like when it comes to how much of a motivator money really is, it's totally subconscious. Like I don't even think about it. But if I really do sit down and think about it, I've optimized so many things in my life just because that's the most effective way to spend my money. And we all go to very big lengths to just optimize that, even on really small levels. Like things that like
which credit card
$10 a month or
points?
something like exactly, right? It's like you get an extra $25 a month worth of points on your credit card, and you will spend like hours trying to figure out the best system in a freaking spreadsheet or something like that, right? And so I love the ideas that you have with the new Pavlok software system.
Yeah, so
maybe explain a little bit what's going on.
The one thing we just started, actually, we just announced it today. We have this new so the process of what I'm talking about is many decades. You don't change world currency in 3 years, right? It's not a quick process. But the first step is to get proof of concept out where people are able to make money for doing good habits. And the one that really has the biggest ramifications on motivation without having high expenses or high technological costs is grand prize drawing or sweepstakes, right? So that's why you're able, so we basically started launching this healthy habit sweepstakes. So we have this Pavlok subscribership. So for like the last 5 years, we've been selling Pavlok hardware products upfront cost. So it's like $150. We sold about 100,000 of them. And just about 6 months ago, we started selling it as a subscription product. So you could get it for $30 a month and cancel it by mailing it back. We started to notice that two things were happening. One was that a lot of people, more than we expected, were taking the subscription offer. And number two, we had predictable revenue. We knew exactly how much money was coming from these subscribers each day. So I started to say, okay, this is great. Now I know how much money I'm getting from these subscribers, and I know how much money I'm going to get next month from these subscribers. What if I use that money to give it back to these subscribers as a bonus in order to motivate good behavior? So I said, what if we start a healthy habits sweepstakes? So this is the first thing we're launching today. The first test we're launching right now. And basically, we have just under 1,000 people who purchased the Pavlok membership, and they don't even know that they're going to get this. But the product tracks their steps, right? And so what we're doing is that every single day in every 24-hour period, for every 1,000 steps they walk, they get a lottery entry, entry into the sweepstakes. And at the end of every day, we do a drawing where we pull out one number from a hat, essentially, it's a program. And the winner receives a cash prize. At the end of the month, we do one grand prize drawing, and the winner will receive $1,000. So for every extra steps you walk, you have a new entry, a new chance to win a prize. And you'll see it in the app as you do it, that you are entered in 1, 2, 3, 5, 10 times today because you walked this many steps. So it's a small way to motivate people. The nice thing is that there's so few people, because it's the first time we're running it, that people will have a very high likelihood of winning. The negative, of course, is that the numbers are not as massive as I'd like the sweepstakes to be.
Eventually it could be very large, right?
Yeah, well, by the time, we've already made a deal that when we get 10,000, so we have 100,000 customers. We typically sell around 30,000 units a year. When we get 10,000 subscribers, that's $300,000 a month in recurring revenue, because it's $30 a month times 10,000, right? And so we made a big mission goal that when that day happens, we're going to hire a celebrity. We're going to have a $100,000 grand prize. We're going to hire a celebrity. I really hope it's Flavor Flav. and we're gonna get a giant check printed, just like Publishers Clearinghouse Prize Patrol. We're gonna drive to their house. Flavor Flav is gonna be like, "What's up, motherfucker? You just won $100,000 for going to the gym. What the fuck you going to do with that money?" See that? I think that will be amazing TV. Giant electric shock clock.
So this is the kind of stuff you can actually do when you're an entrepreneur doing a crazy company like this.
Yeah, and I mean it fits in so well because that's my personality. But like in general, it's like when you actually have recurring revenue and your mission is actually good. And in my mind, I mean, we could easily just take the money from people. There's no problem just taking your $30 every day and keeping it for myself. Okay, great. But what happens with that money? It becomes taxed, right? That positive becomes a negative. I'd rather take that positive and give it back to customers as a bonus to motivate positive behavior that creates, that ultimately, the quantifiable numbers go back from X plus 1 to X equals 0 or whatever. But the value that the customers will receive is what I believe is good, which is doing good habits. And so if we can use the money that customers give us in order to motivate good habits, that's really the mission that we're trying to do. And so that will prove out the first stage of our multi-decade process of how do we fundamentally shift money from being a cost center to being a bonus center, a bad habit to be a good habit.
Yeah, and like this is really a case study in human psychology, really too. Like nothing like this, to my knowledge, has really been done on any kind of scale. And you have the customer base with the devices that can actually test this whole case study out. It's a first of its kind of psychology study. Almost.
I think it's true. I mean, it's actually really funny to see how much we connect different. Like my brain is very much like my personality type is the ENTP, and we're known for being visionaries, but we're also known for not being able to do anything. But we're really good at connecting dots. We see, like I was a DJ who also started an NGO where I lived. I also lived in the wilderness for a month. I also meditated for many weeks. I also was a computer programmer, and I also was a psychology student who also did digital marketing, right? It's so many random things that suddenly they all kind of connect and coalesce into like one fundamental core, which is like kind of being created into the world right now. Because I think many engineers, I think that if you look at consumer electronics as a space, you see that the majority of companies copy off of every other company. So like the last great ENTP consumer electronics leader was Steve Jobs, right? And he came out and he created a phone, the smartphone, the iPhone 1, right? And that was a great phone. And that was 12 years ago. And every single phone till this day, every phone looks identical to the same iPhone 1. Is this really the best thing that 12 years of technology could ever create? No, it's that he made a great product, then he died, and then every other company just copied off that great product, and they don't see the bigger picture. They just see the small thing of let's make it thinner, let's make it shinier, let's make the camera bigger. And so they don't see that there's actually a different approach to solving the real problem. Now, a smartphone is a great product, but that's not the end-all be-all. And the secret next step of a smartphone is not to make a smart watch that's just a smaller version of your phone. There's other things that it's supposed to do. And I think that the beauty of who I am is that I'm lucky enough to have, I'm lucky enough to be this ADHD, ENTP, visionary person who, on average, would be very unlikely to do anything with my life. But because I was lucky enough to get surrounded with a small team of people who helped me take my first idea from idea to reality to profitability, that allows me to be able to build basically anything I want because there's nobody at all looking the same direction I'm looking. Everyone's looking this direction, so no one's seeing that direction. And I think that's really the fundamental shift or difference between us and other companies.
Yeah, and really, I always am interested to ask this question with people like yourself who have started companies that, to be honest, had a very small chance of ever reaching profitability, just because it's so out there. What was your driver and your motivator for pushing it through to that point? Pavlok has been around for 6 years, you're saying, 6 right?
Years,
yeah, and I'm sure there was some points where you questioned, am I crazy for trying to make this thing work, or where was that? Motivation?
No, I'll tell you what the motivation was. I've started hundreds of things that I quit. The reason that Pavlok became real is because I was invested in by an incubator that put me in a room for 9 months with other engineers who were there to help me build prototypes. So this incubator in Boston called Bolt gave me became 9 months of office space and access to engineers. And so I was there. I was there for 9 months. There was nowhere for me to go. I had to be there, right? So because I was there and because I took their money so that they were an investor, it wasn't even an obligation. There was just no choice. Like, I'm sitting in a room with engineers that for 9 months, I'm obviously going to make something, right? And it's forced. Like, if it was my own, I would have probably left after a couple weeks and actually I did. I tried to do this myself 6 months before that, and I gave up. It was just too hard. I didn't know how to fucking make hardware. But because I was forced to do it, then it became the baseline reality. The baseline reality was true. By the time I left that incubator, I already had a couple employees. By the time you already have a couple employees, well, you got to pay those employees. So you better figure out a way to make money, right? And to me, at that point, you're in the cycle. It's the same as a debt loop. I mean, it actually was a debt loop. I was taking debt to pay my employees, so I needed to come up with money so I could get the debt, so I could get my credit up, so I could take more credit cards, so I could cover the employees, so I could cover the inventory costs. It became a debt loop. But the loop always had the point, which was the product was fucking brilliant. Like, I knew it in my head that, like, it was too good an idea to not be like reality. Like, whether I could convince the market to buy it or not. This is back when our product was really targeted at bad habit cessation, and we had a aversion therapy process to quit smoking or quit nail biting in less than a week. Far better than any kind of medication ever could. And we had evidence to back it up, and we had all this other stuff. So I knew it was obviously a good idea. I don't think other people are really as sure that their ideas are that good.
Yeah, so I had a friend of mine in college. I was trying to figure out how to write better essays, so I asked him for advice on how to do it. And he said to me, it's pretty simple, man. You don't worry about going to the library early or reading a lot of books. What you do is you just think about it. And you think about it until you have an idea about the answer to that essay. That's absolutely the best idea that anyone's ever heard. That's all it takes. Once you have the best idea that the teacher's ever heard, you just write it up. The grammar doesn't matter, the structure doesn't matter, the procedure doesn't matter, the order of paragraphs doesn't matter. Just make sure it's the best idea you ever had, that she's ever heard. And I was like, that's the fucking worst advice I've ever heard. How can I fucking use that advice? That's like the most useless advice. And now I get it. I think that the majority, because like once I had this idea and I was like, this is the best fucking idea. Like the idea of a product that doesn't track what you do but changes what you do. A product that rewards you for good habits and makes sure and holds you accountable when you do bad habits. That idea is so good that the mechanics of how to get there are, they're surmountable. There are problems, but there's no way that they're going to get in the way of the fact that this is the best fucking idea that the human society has seen in the last decade, And so I think that a lot of people who, a lot of my older ideas were often ideas that were in competitive spaces, ideas that required a lot of effort that wasn't really my mental process. Like being a DJ is really, really fun and I loved it, but the act of like booking shows and stuff wasn't really the part of my brain that was really fun. And I didn't see the massive value or impact it would be if I were to build like an organization around that concept, But once there was some idea that really fundamentally motivated me in a way that was much more powerful than just getting paid dollars, it really shifted, the way that the projects I wanted to work on, because it was very clear within a month. I was like, this is what I do for the rest of my life. Like before Pavlok, it was a new project every 3 to 6 months. After Pavlok, it was like, I'll die doing this. This is my legacy. And so I think that a lot of people they never stumble on that idea that they really care about, but also they don't really take the time to realize that they should be allowed to stumble on that idea that they really could care about. A lot of times people think they have to choose that idea. Like it's like when you get an essay topic from your teacher and you pick what the theme, like it says, like, how do you react to this book? And then you just pick how you react, and then you try to find evidence to support that and start writing your essay one day after the project is assigned. A lot of people don't realize that you don't have to pick that right away, that you can think about it, let it reflect, let the answer come to you. And so I think a lot of people really make a mission towards, like, they're searching for money often is usually the point, right? They're trying to create a business that gives them money and freedom. So they're going to do the things that other people are already doing that gives them money and freedom. So they end up buying courses on how to make money online that only make money online by teaching other people how to make money online. It's just how pyramid processes, MMO, all this stuff happens. It's just because no one takes a second to say, what if I look the other way?
Yeah, well, and do you think that the average person really doesn't allow themselves to try enough things to stumble upon that idea? Because you didn't just like sit there and meticulously plan like, oh, I'm gonna have this company that does this, this, and this. you just kind of stumbled into it, right? You had this viral post that went viral, and that just told you like, hey, maybe there's something here. What if I did this, right? You just stumbled through by doing things.
Yeah, and I think that not everybody's like me. I think personality typing is really powerful for understanding what kind of jobs would work for you. I think that like there's a lot of people who are finishers and a lot of people who are starters, and some people like there's a lot of people who shouldn't be entrepreneurs. There's a lot. In fact, probably the majority of people, probably not the people listening to this podcast, but probably the majority of people in the world want a job and they do a job, right? Like the majority of people in the world are employees. Like that's just true. So like the majority of people in the world should not be entrepreneurs. The majority of people in the world want a job, want to be told what to do, want something simple, want to go home, want to have a family. Great, no problem. Don't feel bad if you don't want to start a company. Don't feel bad. But if you do want to start a company, if you really do want to make something happen, the most competitive market you can do is copying off what other people are doing. Like by definition, you're going into a competitive landscape, right? I always said, like, I forget who says it, but luck is when preparation meets opportunity. And I think in a lot of ways, like, my brain, I have a very, very fundamentally, like my personality type is this crazy guy who does a lot of stuff, right? So I went out and I created a blog that let me do that. So it was like, how do I become a DJ in 90 days? How do I start an NGO in 90 days? How do I move to South America and how do I live in the wilderness? Like, how do I do these things as fast as I can? And in those early 20s, I thought that I was doing this as like building a 4-hour work week style lifestyle that would be cool and modeled, but really what it was doing was allowing me to explore the different ramifications of what reality is in ways that most people don't get to see. Because when you live in the wilderness, you don't give a shit about money, right? When like that doesn't matter. When you're focusing on how do you become a famous DJ, money's not the secret to becoming a famous DJ. It's like social dynamics. When you're focusing on these different, and that's a different kind of currency. And so like, I think that like if you do a lot of, if you're the kind of personality that's like me, as somebody who's a starter, who's excited by doing new things, the dumbest thing you can do is, especially in your early 20s, to not do new things, to try to like just do one thing well. Especially
when you haven't really honed in on what that one thing even is that you should do well.
Yeah, exactly. If you don't know what the one thing is, why are you doing it? And if you don't love it, if you're just, I get having to do things for money. Of course, everybody did it. I did it. Like I started my AdSense blog in 2008 because I figured out a way to like make money through content creation about random bullshit. But like, yeah, you got to get to baseline survival, obviously. But once you're there, the worst thing you can do is just double down on what you already did because you're going to end up stuck. Like it's like people who start coaching, right? Coaching is a great business model because you only like need a couple clients in order to cover your base costs, right? And especially if you live in Bali, like so many coaches here, it's like you spend $1,000 a month. You only need 2 clients to make $2,000 a month. Great, you make $2,000 a month. But now the next step that people do is they try to get more and more clients, and they try to get more and more clients, and try to get more and more clients, and then it's like, okay, you're going to cap out at like 10 clients. There's no way you can get more. And then what do you do after that? You're going to create a mastermind. You're going to do like a productize your coaching. It's just a fucking same pyramid. Everybody does, and it's so overdone. And instead, if you said, okay, now I have a baseline survival, how do I automate this and utilize that currency as a way to experience more to allow me to, depending on your age and situation, but intake more such that I can allow myself to see what I could output later. I think that not enough people really take into account the fact that that like a lot of life is accidental, and a lot of the best connections happen through, and I don't mean human connections, but I do mean that too. But the best mental synaptic connections happen by having new experiences. So one of the best things that someone, especially in your youth, before you're 30, can do is to optimize to have as many new experiences as possible.
Oh, I totally agree on that, and you are an excellent case study of that.
Yeah.
I'm really excited to see what's going to happen with the new Pavlok experiment that you're doing here. So if people want to follow along with that or reach out to you online, where's the best place for them to do so?
Just go to pavlok.com, pavlok.com. You can follow me on Instagram or Facebook. My posts are pretty funny. Facebook is probably the best place to see my posts. So follow me on Facebook. Put a link, facebook.com/msethi, and check out pavlok.com.
Hell yeah, man. Well,
and if you want to join the thing, it's the Pavlok membership. It's the $30 per month subscription, so that's what you want if you want to join the sweepstakes.
Heck yeah, and potentially $1,000 every single month going forward here.
A lot more than that, but yeah, starting there.
Hell yeah, cool. Brother. Well, thank you for your time, and for For guys, any of the resources we mentioned here are going to be in the show notes at dannycarlson.co/podcast. And until next time, go out there and kick some ass. Cheers, guys.
Thanks for joining us on the Danny Carlson podcast. For resources mentioned in this episode, visit dannycarlson.co.